Hello, welcome to the Nintendo Bros podcast. This is Pete.
And this is Derek.
And we're happy to be back, aren't we, Derek?
Yes, we're two brothers and we talk about video games.
Yeah, and it's funny, I mean, this time of year, right around the beginning of October, usually, at least for me, it's like a big hype period, right? Like there's a big October game, there's a big November game, but it almost feels like this year has already peaked. I don't know, how do you feel about it, Derek?
I agree and disagree. Like I think this year has peaked in the sense that the best games have already come out, but I wouldn't say October, maybe a bit of November is anything to put aside. Like I think there's quite a few pretty big games coming in October for sure. Like I wouldn't argue any of them would be Game of the Year winner. Maybe Super Mario Wonder has a chance, I guess. But I would say there's a lot of, let's say, top 5 potential games coming out this month.
Oh, really?
I think there's at least 3, maybe more potential games that could break the top 5 for a lot of people.
Like, I guess Spider-Man, Mario,
even Alan Wake 2, I think could be pretty big.
Yeah, true. I mean, there are good games coming out. Just none of them have that. At least for me, none of them have that kind of, I don't know, AAA buzz. And even Spider-Man and Mario, for some reason, feel more iterative. And I guess another thing I will mention, we should talk about Starfield, because we were going to have a Starfield Direct. This was one of the biggest hyped new games of the year. And then you haven't played it yet. I played a little bit of it. It seemed to not have landed the way they hoped.
I don't want to totally agree with that. Like I think you're right in the sense that they're aiming for that juggernaut to go against Zelda, Baldur's Gate 3, or even the hype of the like I think Spider-Man 2 is just on another level because of the Marvel and Spider-Man's a big character. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't say Starfield hit its mark, but I wouldn't say it floundered. Like it's still heavily discussed. The Reddit, it's heavily discussed, heavily played. It reviewed pretty well. Like I mean, it got an 84, I think, in the end. So I agree. I don't think it hit its target, but I don't think Xbox is like, oh damn, like we really fucked this up, back to the drawing board kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, you say 84 is not bad. You're right, but I mean, Kirby Forgotten Land had a higher score than that. So I think it comes down to a little bit like there was so much budget and so much attention. I mean, for years, really, for multiple years, this game has been getting attention. Almost the entire Xbox Series generation, was hinging on the hype from Halo Infinite and then Starfield. And
I mean, even Hi-Fi Rush got a much higher review.
I know, but I guess my whole point about all this is that it seemed like the one big brand new IP this year that had the makings of maybe like a AAA or the makings of a big classic Game of the Year lister game, in my opinion, was Starfield, because Baldur's Gate, Zelda, Spider-Man, Mario, they all are iterative, where this was the next big thing from the team that brought us Skyrim.
Again, I want to disagree with that too. Like, even though I agree, Baldur's Gate 3 it's been so long, and I wouldn't say it's the next, like, that's doing a disservice to Baldur's Gate 3, I think.
Fair enough. I mean,
even Tears of the Kingdom a little bit.
Yeah, true. I just mean Starfield was brand new. Brand new IP.
Brand new IP, totally.
And they had been working on it for 10 years. And so we'll talk about it and what we've been playing. But I did download it. I played a few hours of it, and I found it extraordinarily disappointing.
I mean, for me, I think the video was... let's talk about it when we get to what we've been playing. But, for me, like, I've never liked Bethesda games. I've talked about it several times on our podcasts. So I went in being like, oh, this could be good. But I had no... like, my hype or hope wasn't there. Like I believe this game was gonna be kind of an 80 range game. I think it's gonna have a huge fan following with mods for the next decade probably. But I don't like those games anyway. So I wasn't really like let down. I feel like you were more disappointed. You've played it and I haven't, but I think I don't even care if I never play it.
Yeah, I mean, I like Fallout 3. I played a bunch of it till my game glitched out. I didn't get into Skyrim. I remember I played Oblivion and Morrowind back in the day with friends on their Xboxes. or I believe Oblivion was Xbox 360 and Morrowind was Xbox. I remember me and my friend played tons of Morrowind. It was like the first mega open world game, right? Like it wasn't just GTA 3. It was like mega open. So I have a history with Bethesda, but I think the thing with Starfield was that demo they showed around E3, like the Xbox showcase. Do you remember that? I found that video to be quite like incredible, and in a way where I wasn't really sold on the game before that. But in a way, like imagine when Breath of the Wild was first shown off, and everybody was floored with that first demonstration and hands-on and like what the game was offering. Everyone was blown away, and then when it came out about a year later, it completely delivered. If not delivered more than people expected. But with
Yeah.
Starfield, I feel like that demo or that demonstration, the 45-minute demonstration, made the game look like something. Frankly, it's not. And it made the game, and I think that's why it's getting some backlash. I know you've seen a lot more of the discussion than I have, but a lot of the discussion I've seen around it has been kind of disappointing and negative. And it's like anyone who's enjoyed Starfield has kind of had to like carve out their way of liking it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I think most people that are getting enjoyment out of it isn't really because of the game, but because of the players' creativity in the game.
yeah,
if that
and,
makes
and
sense.
people like Bethesda games, right? But
But I mean, like there are people that spend 40 hours building ships, and all they've done is built ships for 40 hours, and like that is super fun for them, and they're like, oh my god, it's so in depth and whatever. It's like, is that the game that's fun, or is that just them making fun through an element in the game?
yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. And I haven't explored the game a ton, but I guess for me that the base experience is so flawed that even if I spent hours building my ship, it's like you're building your ship to play in like kind of this fake skybox, simulating a big world. I mean, I guess let me. I mean, we'll get.
Can we let's keep going. We'll get to this then when we
Yeah, we'll
once
talk
we've
about
been
our
playing.
impressions later, but I just want to touch on this kind of Microsoft thing for a bit because this was their big Breath of the Wild game. This was their peak, and it's just kind of like
Yeah.
it feels a little bit drained. And then Forza, the new Forza Motorsports came out, and that had a lot of hype, had a full year delay, and it also landed with an 84, and which is solid, but it previous Forza games have had higher. And it actually landed
Yes.
below Gran Turismo 7, which surprised people because in the last few Forza versus Gran Turismos, Forza
Forza's
was
won.
the
Sorry,
winner.
yeah.
So I don't know. It's just like it's just this kind of weird feeling to be like these big Microsoft exclusives this year, putting aside Hi-Fi Rush, which is a great surprise. Redfall disappointed, and then Starfield came out with a not the mega 90 plus Metacritic that people hope for, and then Forza came out and it's like, okay, it's not the strongest Forza. So it's just kind of like this year went from what could have been this big turnaround year for Xbox, and it seems like it didn't land.
I mean, I completely agree. I think this year was not up to what Microsoft planned. I think it's kind of funny. I think Hi-Fi Rush is the game that came out this year that they expected to kind of be like, oh, let's just put this out as a shadow drop. Hopefully people like it. Be a mid 70s kind of review, and it's gonna be fun. And it ended up being I think 89 or 88 on Metacritic, and all the other games that they were hyping ended up doing, again, like you said, good, but I think below their mark. What's kind of interesting to me is the discussion that I'm sure we'll have throughout the next 6 months of podcast, probably 6 years, is what's Xbox's next game, because we know
6 years from now, when's their next game coming out?
Exactly. I just there are some games that we've seen titles for and discussion about, but nothing's really after Starfield and Forza. We don't really have any real looks at any games of theirs at all.
Well,
Like,
we did see some other games during the showcase, but I guess the what place I'm coming from, it's like, well, let's look at the next 9 months of Xbox, and I don't think Towerborn and Avowed and Hellblade 2 are like really gonna light anyone up.
But have we even? But I totally agree. I don't even think those are going to probably hit. But it's like, have we really seen anything of Avowed? Really? Like, not. We don't know
saw
much about
gameplay.
it.
We saw a trailer with gameplay.
But I know, short, and we saw Hellblade. It's basically like a cinematic game anyways. But I just mean, if you think about the hype cycle of Starfield, like, I'm curious of what the boardroom of Xbox Studios is kind of sitting down and discussing, saying, what is our next flagpole game that we're going to start pumping up that comes out in even 2 years or whenever it comes out? What are we pumping out as our hype game that everyone needs to be on board for, that Game Pass is going to be on? This is going to be super exciting. Because, I don't know, is Avowed going to do that for them? Or is Hellblade going to do that for them?
I don't think the marketing on either of those games has even led us to believe that's what they think.
Exactly. So I'm kind of waiting. Like, maybe it's the Indiana Jones games we've heard about, or maybe it's maybe there's the Evil Within 3, or I don't know. Maybe they're gonna wait on acquisition, and see what games coming down that line. I don't know. It just kind of Microsoft is up in the air, in my opinion, as far as like, oh, what are we really like looking at as far as hype games, where I can name at least a few for Nintendo and Sony.
Yeah, and I think the key though is that this year Sony has Spider-Man and Gran Turismo, or was Gran Turismo this year, right? Last year.
I think it's this year.
Was it this year?
Pretty sure it's this year.
So
I'll check.
And then this year Nintendo had their Zelda and 2D Mario. And Microsoft just didn't seem to have that tent pole. I guess they were trying for Starfield, but I think for a first party, the pattern that
last 2022 March.
Okay, so they had Spider-Man, but I think the big takeaway for me is that for a first party or a console manufacturer, every year Nintendo has a flagship game, and even in their weaker years, they just pretend that Paper Mario is that. You know what I mean? But even in an off year for the every year of the Switch has had a flagpole game, whether it's been Animal Crossing or a Pokemon or a Zelda, or it's like they don't have a year where they don't have one game they're pretty sure is good, which has been good, which will sell well, which it does. And I think that's something that Microsoft used to have with their rotating Halo Gears kind of cycle. But they need to get back into that mindset where every year they need to have something big. And so maybe that is their mindset. And I think maybe next fall they will have a new Gears or a new Halo, or who knows. But I don't know.
Or even just show it off even, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, as of now, I just it's just a bit dire, and I don't. Xbox Series is selling worse than Xbox One did.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it hasn't been great.
Do you think Xbox this could be their last system, or do you think they're gonna go for a while? Because I mean, they just bought a pretty huge game studio.
Well, that's a good segue into the Microsoft leak that happened about a month ago. I don't know how much you looked up on this, but it was through their
I saw titles. That's it.
Through their filings, I guess they forgot to black out one of the documents. So a lot of stuff leaked, like including, they have a mid-gen refresh coming for the Xbox Series, and it's like cylindrical, kind of like the Apple Mac Pro, like a cylindrical. It has no disk drive, has 2 terabytes of solid state, and their plan was at 2028 for next generation. And some other things came out, like projected release schedules for Bethesda. So we saw like a Dishonored 3 at some point was planned. We know that we saw some emails from Phil Spencer that were out of context, so I don't feel like touching on that too much. But I thought the interesting thing to touch on was one, they have a mid-gen refresh with no disk drive, and the other thing is that 2028 is their when they plan to launch next generation. So first thing I wanted to ask you, Derek, was 2028 for next gen. What do you think about that?
I mean, so they came out in what, 2020?
2020,
so 8 years
yeah.
or so.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we usually see cycles between 6 to, I don't know if we've ever seen 8, like 6 to 7 years, but with these mid-gen refreshes that it seems that, Sony and Microsoft are kind of doing, even the Nintendo to some extent, with the OLED Switch, not quite the same. I'm okay with the 8 years thing. Again, I don't know what the state of Xbox will be in 5 years from now. Like, are they really going to be in a position where they want to do another console? Like, I don't know what Microsoft is saying to Xbox Studios, saying, you got one more system in you, or this Activision Blizzard deal better be worthwhile. Like I don't know if Phil Spencer's sweating bullets or not. You know?
Yeah, and I mean, even at this point, if Microsoft got out of the console game, they'd still have a pretty powerful hand in the gaming industry simply with Call of Duty, Activision, Bethesda. Like they'd still be a player for sure.
Yeah.
But I just don't know. I don't know if the console thing. I mean, it just hasn't been working for them in a certain perspective. I know they're still profitable, but it's just they're not getting the gains they want. And one of the things,
and I find that just crazy that they're not getting the games they want, because if you just look at the slate of developers they have, they should be pumping out as many games as Nintendo is, really. Like, especially if they get Activision Blizzard, but like all of Bethesda is like a good 6 pretty solid studios.
Yeah.
And then you have their original companies that they already had that make Halo, Gears. They have Ninja Theory. Like, they should be pumping out games nonstop.
Yeah, which is why I'm, I don't know, confused maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know the development time takes longer or whatever, but like they just have a high number of studios. And what I find interesting is, maybe it's just misremembering, but I find those Bethesda studios were putting out games more frequently before they were acquired by Microsoft.
For sure.
Like,
I mean, there were like two games a year, it felt like, at least.
I know, but I'm just talking about like even Tango, The Evil Within 1, The Evil Within 2 came back to back pretty nicely, or Arcane Studios. Like, I just feel like somehow joining the Microsoft team, every developer that's on the Microsoft team has slowed their rate of games coming out.
I mean,
and I don't really think that.
I think that has to do a lot with just the next new generation. I mean, Evil Within 1 and 2 were on what, PS3? Right?
PS4.
Are you sure about that? I thought
Well,
they were.
I played The Evil Within 1 on PS4. I don't think it came out on the 3, but it may
I
have.
thought number 1 came out for Xbox 360 PS. But anyways, yeah, I agree. I think development costs are rising, and I think things. Yeah, I don't know. You're right. They really should have more games, and I mean, I just don't understand why they're. We've talked about this before, but why they're showing us. Fable, which looks so far away, and it's like, don't you have something ready sooner? That's exciting. But the other thing, I should note, is that one of the things that leaked was with the mid-gen refresh is coming a controller refresh, and it's not really confirmed or anything. Nothing's confirmed. It's a leak, but there's going to be an accelerometer, I believe, in the controller, or it's haptics. And some people aren't sure if it's going to be like more advanced, like the gyros in the Switch and PS5 controller, or something more basic. But it's just like, it's such an eye roll, right? It's like it speaks to Microsoft's way of doing things, where Nintendo and Sony were so forward on their gyro controllers. Hell, they've been doing it since the PS3 Wii generation. They've added motion controls, and this is now 2 generations later, and it feels just kind of pathetic that halfway through the generation, Microsoft's like, oh, okay, well, we'll have it too. And it feels weird that certain games are made by Xbox now exclusive developers, and are on PS5 and Xbox, something like what's that game? Deathloop. But on PS5, it has better control options because you have gyro aiming. I know you don't like gyro aiming, but to me, it's a big deal. So it's just like, I don't know what to feel about it. People are kind of like, well, no, it's not confirmed gyro. They only have accelerometers and haptics. And it just feels like this really weird catch up. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just not seeing much. I guess I don't get the sense that from Microsoft we're getting any bold, new, creative, unique direction. It seems like they're kind of following behind, or following the trend, if you will.
Totally agree. Like, I think they're, I want to see. I know Starfield, I guess you could say, is innovative, and I'm not going to deny that. Where's the creativity of Microsoft? Again, they have so many studios, but it seems like they're either pumping out sequels or first-person shooters. And when they buy Activision Blizzard, all those studios are just going to be pumping out the same Activision Blizzard games.
Exactly.
So I just, are they just trying to outbuy the competition, or are they actually like trying to build meaningful new creative games, new teams, and push the boundary on, the the video game industry, or are they just trying to buy out a slice of it?
Yeah, totally. And I think the thing, and I feel like this is maybe a big kind of America problem or North America problem where, we're so capitalistic over here. Like taking risks is less, taking a risk is less likely something a corporation is going to do. It feels like over here. So you might have something over there where it's like, wow, we're going to do something completely different. Like Nintendo's going to make Splatoon or cell shade Zelda or do something really kind of by their own tastes and sensibilities. Where it feels like if Microsoft at this point was going to say, yeah, let's make a brand new intellectual property, a brand new game, it almost feel like a focus tested kind of like, oh, it's like Dude Bro Shooter focus tested to hell and back, games as a service to hell and back. Like there just doesn't seem any like real true vision. And I mean, yeah,
it honestly seems like they have the same like focus group of 17 to 35-year-old men.
Yeah, totally.
Like I think of the Switch generation and Splatoon when it came out first. I totally agree. What an awesome creative idea, just going with it. But even looking at ARMS, ARMS came out as a launch window game, totally out there for a fighting game. Or then you look at Ring Fit. Like I know we've had other Wii balance board kind of games, but just the idea of like, hey, let's throw another peripheral on this game and just make it a fitness game and make it really cool. And just like, again, it's so out of left field to have a ring be part of your fitness routine, but that game sold like crazy.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if it's hit 10 million, but.
Oh yeah, it definitely has. It's like 15, almost 15.
Okay. Yeah.
Like
I knew it was up there.
Sellers. It's a huge seller.
So I'm just saying like, Nintendo's willing to do that. I think Sony's kind of the middleman there. Like I think they have a lot of sequels and they had those games that their teams trust. But it's not like we don't see innovative games from them as well. But I find Microsoft, if any of their games are innovative, they often end up being first-person shooter, dude bro, exactly like you said. That's why like when you see a game like Hi-Fi Rush, especially this year, got great reviews, unique game, unique art style, so different than what Xbox normally does. Like, why are those games just shadow dropped? Like, that game should have been promoted, should have been pushed harder. Like, I just think there's potential there. They just don't know how to really utilize it.
Yeah, I agree. And when I really think back on the history of Xbox, it seems like they haven't had a lot of strong, bold direction since the 360 generation. And like the last time I really remember thinking that Xbox had this kind of bold direction was when Gears of War 1 came out, and they, it was a breakthrough third-person cover shooter. Then they had what's it called? They had Viva Pinata, which was like letting Rare make kind of a weird Pinata life sim game, and then so they had this kind of weird direction going there. And I mean, I know they've had some hits over the years, Sea of Stars and stuff, and they made a Killer Instinct that was really cool. And even Connect, like they seem to have kind of a bold direction. But I think the major thing with comparing like Nintendo's innovation is where Nintendo will do something like, hey, like they'll release Labo, let's say, and Labo was creative and neat, but it didn't set the world on fire, and they kind of stopped. They did their plan, that was it. Let's move on to another creative endeavor. Where it seemed like with Connect, Microsoft maybe like got too overwhelmed and like doubled down on it, and it hurt them. So I don't know. It's a measuring how you measure creative risks, I guess. But I don't know. I think the one funny thing with Xbox is that I don't regret the system, because I feel like I've saved a lot of money this generation, and Game Pass has been extraordinarily cheap. I basically have used it as a machine to play big third-party releases. So I'm still getting my Resident Evils, I'm still getting my Elden Ring and Dead Space and all those games I want to play. But then I'm getting this huge amount of games, indies and older games, and Bethesda older games, Microsoft new releases on Game Pass. And I don't think Game Pass is going to be this cheap forever. I actually think the way we're seeing streaming platforms like Netflix and Disney Plus not turning a profit like they hoped and having to raise the prices, I think the exact same thing is going to happen to Game Pass. So I think eventually they're going to say, I actually wouldn't be surprised if Call of Duty's never come to Game Pass and Diablo's never come to Game Pass, and they just they draw a hard line with some of these new developers, or the new maybe they'll announce the new what's it called, Elder Scrolls is not going to be on Game Pass. Like there might be some of that happening in the future, or the price goes up, or who knows, right?
Or there's two tiers of Game Pass. There's Game Pass and then Game Pass Pro, which gives you Activision Call of Duty every year.
Yeah, maybe they already have a reduced version of Game Pass, like a $6-7 one. That's like you only get a small amount of games per month.
But I just mean, if they have more games and they need more money for Game Pass, that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I think the reason I wanted to talk about Microsoft for a bit is because I was listening to this podcast and they were talking about how they're predicting whether Starfield was going to be the first Microsoft first-party game to break 90 on Metacritic since something like Gears of War 2. Like it's been a long, long time.
I'm telling you, Hi-Fi Rush was close.
It was close, and you know what? I think there was a disclaimer of this of non-racers because I believe Forza Horizon has.
Yeah, Forza Horizon got a 92, I think.
Yeah. But when it comes to non-racers, which is kind of a weird disclaimer, but still, they haven't. It was like decades since they had a 90 exclusive. Where Sony and Nintendo have had multiple this generation, and both of the people on the podcast predicted Starfield would break the 90. So that's where it's like now that it's like low 84, it's just kind of like, well, is something going to break that echelon for them soon?
Okay, I agree, and you know, I love Sony, but let's play the game of, and you might have a better memory than I would. What's a Sony 90 plus game that's not a third person action story game?
Well, but I mean,
yeah, but if you disclaim one for, pardon me,
I said most of Sony's games are third person. I mean, third person represents a lot.
I totally, but I'm just saying, you know, all of their, you can see the parallels between The Last of Us 2 and God of War Ragnarok. Like they had that similar kind of flow.
I agree, right? But they also had, you know, Astro's Playroom and Astro Rescue Mission, and they had.
Did those get 90 plus?
I believe so. I believe Rescue Mission did. Yeah,
okay. I don't know. I was just more of a question.
You know, I believe so, and you know, Demon Souls, the remake from Blue Point, I believe had a close to 90 on Metacritic.
Okay, yeah.
And you know, Ghost of Tsushima, I think had a very high 80s when it came out on the tail end of PS3.
I know, and like I'm not denying that. I'm just saying it's just weird to be like, oh, well, this one doesn't count for Xbox, and say, but these do count for Sony.
Yeah, but I also think, you know,
Astro Playroom got an 83,
quote unquote
by the way.
third. Sorry, it got an 83 Rescue Mission.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
No. Oh, sorry. Playroom, but Rescue. Let me check Rescue Mission.
I think Rescue Missions should be higher. But I guess, yeah, you're right. I guess just in my memory, Sony has had bigger tentpole releases. Like nothing on Xbox has come as well critically received as God of War Ragnarok.
It got a 90, by the way. Yeah, totally.
And I just don't know if racing and sports, like, yes, yeah, we can throw away categories, sure, but you know, third person is kind of like most games. So
yeah.
I don't know. It's just kind of like there is something about a third person story driven game. It's like I would equate like a racing game to being like a Marvel blockbuster film. And I would equate a third person action game like a God of War to being like a potentially Oscar winning film, where one is just feels like it has more I don't know, more to it. You know, you're rendering human characters with animation, not just upgrading your car models from 2 years ago. But anyways, let's move on from Microsoft. Let's talk about something coming up in almost just over a week now, and that's Mario Wonder. We've had previews, we have had hands-on events, we've had some more stuff, and so everything's been like overwhelmingly positive. Like the previews have said this game's amazing. People are now Metacritic predicting 90 plus for Mario Wonder. People are now doing this kind of like, whoa, there's a brand new 2D Mario coming out and there hasn't been one in over a decade. Can you believe that vibe? To me, it doesn't feel like it's been that long because New Super Mario Bros. U was, I guess I'm just getting older, but it doesn't feel as long ago as Mario World did, you know?
And I also lump in 3D Super Mario 3D World in my head as a 2D Mario game, even though I don't know it's not. So
okay. I
mean, I see it as I know it's not 2D. I just see it as the same, like four players running through a level.
But even still, it's been 10 years since 3D World.
Oh, I didn't know it was that long.
2013, November. Yeah, it's a crazy long time ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, maybe if you conclude that it's still been a long time, but it still doesn't really feel like it to me. I guess for me, the thing with the Mario Wonder is, I have it pre-ordered. I'm excited to play it. I'll play it on the first day it comes out. I'll beat it, but it doesn't feel hype for me, and it almost feels like it feels like Thanksgiving, which is today, but it feels like Thanksgiving. Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm gonna like the taste of the turkey, but I'm not like really excited for it. you know, I don't know. What do you think, Derek?
I'm actually the opposite. I'm super excited for it. This is the first 2D Mario game that I've been excited for in a long time because I didn't like the new Super Mario Bros. Games. I think it's actually like there's 2 or 3 of them that I never even got. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think they have the right level of familiarity, but also trying to change up the formula a bit with these kind of zany stuff going on. But I do agree. It's like I was going to kind of equate it to Thanksgiving dinner where it's all this delicious food. It's going to be great, but there's no one surprising you with a surprise, dish at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So like I get that Wonder is going to have these kind of fun things to it, but I don't think it's going to be so like, whoa, this game is completely out there. This is like this is defining 2D Mario as something new.
Yeah,
so I think it'll be really
not super ambitious, I guess.
Exactly. Like, but who knows? Maybe there will be some crazy stuff with those Wonder Seeds that really do change up the formula. But again, to me, I'm really excited for it. I think I'm gonna have a great time. I think it's gonna be amazing. But it's something that I expect is the best way I would say.
Yeah, and I think because we already kind of know how it feels. Like a lot of people who've played hands-on, because there's a demo now at like Target and stuff, so people have played it, and a lot of people are saying it plays a lot. It feels like New Super Mario Bros, which is, some people think it's a good thing, some people think it's a bad thing, but I guess it's just like it's extremely familiar. But I guess who knows though? You're right. Like I have a feeling like the day before I'll start to get really excited, and then when I play it, all of a sudden I'll be like, whoa! And when I see it on my OLED with the new music and everything, I'll like start to appreciate the visuals of it. Where watching it just on YouTube doesn't quite sell me. But yeah, it's funny. I think it's one of those games where it's like it's a good safe game, but because of that, it's gonna sell like for 30 million copies, and everyone's gonna have it.
It's gonna sell like crazy, especially since I know the Super Mario RPG remake, but Nintendo kind of left their Christmas open for this to be the big Christmas game, at least the multiplayer game, and RPG could be the single player game or whatever. But I think this game is going to sell an insane amount.
So do I. And I think it's going to be very well received. Yeah, I guess I'm just not putting a lot of faith in. I mean, from what we've seen of the previews, I just don't know if there's going to be like something totally shocking out of that, right? I think, like we're with, maybe they will. I mean, they really hid things for Tears of the Kingdom. They didn't show the underground at all, really.
Like the craziest thing I could possibly imagine is they made a Wonder Seed where you grab it and the level becomes like a level from 3D World, where it becomes a not 2D.
There is
level.
One where like all of a sudden it's bird's eye.
Top down. I know, but I still think it'd be cool if
I think for me, what would really make me surprised in a satisfied way is if when I'm halfway through the game, I haven't seen any of the level themes repeat. And I'm really feeling like I'm excited to see new level themes constantly. Where
I think that's a big one is going to happen.
So do I. I really hope that's going to happen. I also hope that the music is not repetitive. So that we're like,
you're going to get
bops.
you're going to get theme music for certain level types, but like Bowser's Castle.
I would love to just get to a certain level and be like, whoa, this is a throwback to like the Super Nintendo Mario World song, and they've reduxed it, or this is a brand new song. It's really good, like a Gusty Gardens.
Yeah. It'd be nice if they took the music the way like Donkey Kong does, where every level is kind of a brand new song.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And I think the third, just to cut you off there, the third thing I would hope is that I get some challenge in it. It looks really easy, and I want it to be a little hard.
I'm sure like there's always going to be bonus content levels, just like 3D World and even New Super Mario Bros. But there's be a whole world post game that will be challenging. I think for sure.
The new Super Mario Bros. Post games have never been challenging, except for New Super Luigi U, which was like a redux to be challenging. But there wasn't really a challenge at the end of New Super Mario Bros., New Super Mario Bros. 2, Wii, or Wii U.
Oh, I mean, I didn't play those games.
They don't have like that what 3D World had, where it's like, hey, you beat the game. Now is the real crazy game. Like that was a big surprise with 3D World. Maybe this will have something like that.
Yeah, I hope they do. I mean, it's been a while, and I think they want to really hit this one at the park. But at the end of the day, this is a family-friendly game. The only thing that I would say that gives slight hope that there will be more challenge is they have that easy mode for Yoshi or whatever.
Yeah.
So they're having a super easy mode. You got to expect that some of the levels actually do get pretty challenging. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, it's pre-ordered. I'm excited. And, it's almost nice not being hyped because it comes out faster. Like, if this was Tears of the Kingdom, I'd be like, 11 more days. How am I going to sustain myself? But now I'm like, I'll blink and it'll be here.
Yeah. I was counting down to like the hours for Tears of the Kingdom, where this is like, it's 10 days away from right now. And the other thing that's kind of nice is it comes out on the same day as Spider-Man 2, so I can jump back and forth between both. So it'll make me feel like Mario won't get stale. You know what I mean? Like if you play 10 levels of Mario, it does feel a little samey, but if you're taking short bursts and jumping to play another game, both games can kind of keep its freshness longer.
Totally, yeah. It's a perfect palate cleanser.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for Mario because I feel like I've been into a lot of like heavy games this year so far, like third person action adventure story, and so I'm kind of just ready for something like brain off and lighter.
Exactly.
Change that before I get into Mario RPG and other games. Yeah, Derek. Okay, well, before we talk about what we've been playing, because I know we've been playing some games, is there any other news that we should touch on? I can't think of any. I just don't.
I can't think of it off the top of my head. No.
Okay, I just don't want to like skip a massive topic that you were hoping to discuss.
Let's move on. But if I think of anything, we can jump back.
Okay. Well, let's talk about what we've been playing.
Okay.
Derek, I have 3 games on my list.
Okay, I have 4.
You have 4. Okay, so why don't you go first?
Okay, so the first game I'll talk about. This might be one of the games you play because I recommended it several times to you.
Cocoon.
Is Cocoon, yeah.
Yeah, it is one of my games.
Did you play?
Yep.
Okay.
So let's talk about before you spoil it, because I know you've beaten it, right?
Yeah.
I haven't beaten it.
Okay, so why don't you talk about it first, and then I'll add on.
Okay, so I started playing it based on your recommendation, and I basically ended up playing it for like 2.5 hours. And I love it. I think it's amazing. It's definitely going to be on my top 10 list, and it's funny because I remember they showed a video for this about, I don't know, for Switch. I think it's on Switch too, which I'm playing it on Xbox. It's on Game Pass. But I think it was like a year ago they showed a trailer for this, and I saw the trailer and I was like, nah, this looks like a weird puzzle game where you're in one little space. And this is not that at all. The impression I got from that old trailer was so off. Mm-hmm. But I really like it a lot, and I think I just love it. I love how there's no text, there's no story, there's no explanation. Just throw me in and let the game design teach me. It's like brilliant game design, really.
Yeah, like I'm gonna jump back and forth with you. The one thing that I would give high praise for about it is like the game design, but the polish behind it. One example. One of the examples I see a lot of people talk about, and I totally noticed it and love it, is where you enter a new area and the thing that like brought you there goes away.
Yep.
So you know that like there's no this like obtuse backtracking. You don't know where to go. You're like confined to a certain area, and you know that all the solutions are in that area. Especially when you're in multiple worlds, they're all kind of constricted just enough so that you know that you're not wandering forever. And if you think about how many puzzle games where you just like you go back to older rooms, you're like, what the hell did I miss?
Exactly.
This game is just like it's kind of funny. People are saying, this game feels easy because it's so well designed not to make it obtuse and frustrating.
Yep.
It's not necessarily easy. It feels that way because there's no like there's no fat on this puzzle game where it's like fat of, not knowing where to go. They've trimmed that to make it a really clear, like you're just solving the puzzle and moving. And I really like that. It's really well polished.
It somehow fixed my issue with backtracking in games like this, with what you just said, and it's brilliant. And I know when Metroid Dread came out, it got a lot of like semi praise for this, where there's a name for this, where it kind of blocks the you walk into a door and then the door breaks kind of thing, so you can only go forward. Where there's something with, I guess,
it's like railroading you in a direction.
Yeah, and there's this. I saw this like meme about this where someone was talking about this with like the first Devil May Cry game is where they started to feel this, where it's like, okay, you have two directions, one's the way to go and one's for a secret, but I don't know which way is the secret, but I want the secret before I go the way I'm supposed to go, so I'm gonna run down hallway to the left. But if I run too far, I'm going to start assuming it's the way to go, turn around, and then go right. And then it's like, oh, right, okay, well, there's a chest to the right, and then I can run to the left again. Or you go to the right, and then you keep going to the right, and you're like, well, was the left? Like, you just don't know which is the secret, and which is some sort of backtracking, or to like a secret fast passage, or which way is the way to go. And it actually becomes almost annoying, where there's almost this thing in games when I play sometimes, where I'm just scaling the left side of the room. So I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm always going to the left, and I'll
so you don't miss. Yeah,
exactly. So I'm never like actually dynamically choosing left or right. I'm like, well, I'm always going to go left. I'm always going to circle around the left perimeter, going, left clockwise, and then I'll do that everywhere, and eventually I'll see everything.
You and I probably have very similar ways of like discovering video games. Where I think of my character and I want to explore radially. So, like, I want to explore outwards in a 360 direction, where some people are like, I'm going to go down this path, and I'm going to go it as far as I possibly can, and just make a note that I have to come back and check the other direction. Where, for me, I'm like, I want to explore, and I know that this one's going to go on forever. I want to go back and see if the other one's a shorter path. And it's kind of interesting because, we talk about this idea of the doors coming in, falling over, and you can't go back. In some ways I really like that, especially in Cocoon. It's actually one of the few times where I'm like, wow, this really worked. But other times it actually, for someone like me that really likes that exploring all the nooks and crannies, I can find that actually a frustrating quality. Where a little bit in like Metroid Dread, I'm like, oh man, I missed that room with the missile upgrade that I could have gone in, and now I won't be able to get back there for like 2 hours as I get around the whole map again.
I think the thing with Metroid that made it sometimes awkward is that style of Metroidvania is to say, here's your world, explore it at your own pace, and figure it out at your own pace.
That's honestly why you and I have such different views on Metroid Dread. Is I think it's a great game, controls great, really really fun, but that is what I'm looking for, is kind of that you get lost and you don't know where you're going. You kind of check. You do backtrack every single room until you find the one place to go through. Yeah. Where Metroid Dread was a little bit of that
more railroad. Guided, more in the Metroid, like Metroid Fusion, really, in the way it guides you.
Even Metroid Fusion, I feel like there were times where you weren't as clearly guided.
Maybe, but Metroid Fusion was very much like, you go to this whole section and do it, then you go to this whole section and do it, then you go to
I know, but there's that part where like all the power turns off, and you have to figure out where to go, and you like go from one section to another. Like, you're right though, but
I mean, I guess the thing with Metroid Dread is sometimes it's like, I would fall into the situation, and this happens on a lot of Metroidvanias, where I'm wandering all over the place when all I had to do is get that one little thing that was right in front of me when I started wandering. And it can be annoying when I don't actually know what the game's telling me to do, because sometimes in Metroid Dread it was like, well, hey, the path you came from is blocked now, you have to move forward, great. But there's other times I'm thinking, well, is this open exploration time where I'm supposed to go back to this? Like, at what point am I still trudging forward, and at what point am I supposed to go backwards and look around with my new power-ups? Like, it wasn't clear. And I think the thing with Cocoon that's so genius that fixes this problem for its style of game is, like you said, it really brilliantly makes you feel like you can just keep moving forward. And that's with the level design, but it's also with not having any secrets and power-ups. Sorry, and I don't know if I just haven't seen any yet, but it's not like some games where like everywhere you go there's a coin in a bush. You know what I mean?
No. Yeah, like there are little tiny secrets in that game, but they'd have no impact on the game. It's just more like a secret ending. I didn't find them all. It really isn't worrying. But the one thing I would say is, like, there is I don't think this is a spoiler. There is light backtracking in Cocoon where there are moments where you're like, oh, I'm back at this place. And that happens later on. But even then, it's not like, oh, I'm back at this place. Now I have nowhere to go. It's like, oh, I'm back at this place because now I have this way to go because I can do this.
Yeah.
Like kind of, it circles back on itself in a logical kind of way. So
Yeah.
I really like that too.
And I also really love one button. Like, unless it introduces more buttons, I think it's so genius. And I love that about Vampire Survivor, and I love that about Cocoon. And it's actually amazing how much depth the gameplay has, because every time you pick up one of the orbs, you have a different power up, and the bosses have patterns that you have to follow, and it's actually like kind of a combat cycle. And it's like, this is brilliant. This is a brilliantly designed game.
Just you got to beat the game because the last hour to me is the like the icing on that cake. Like it's so good. Like the rest of the game is great, don't get me wrong, but the last hour of the game is like, damn, like this was so well designed.
And you said the game's what, about 3 hours, 4 hours?
It's about 4 to 5, yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna play tonight, so I'll probably beat it in the next few days. Like it's probably, I mean, I played one game session, it was like 2 hours long. I loved it.
Yeah, you're probably halfway. So if you go to the load screen, it tells you what percent you are.
Okay. My only complaint, I guess, is I just kind of think the game could use some music. It kind of is like a silent game, and I think maybe it's styling, or like, really light music, like kind of like Breath of the Wild. But I really think this game would have benefited from some good tunes,
Yeah, I agree.
But I guess that's their style. That's that developer's style with Inside and Limbo. And I mean, honestly, Inside, Limbo, and these guys are genius.
Yeah, this isn't made by that same team, but it's made by the same guy that is one of the guys that left the team. Yeah.
Yeah, and it almost feels like the guy. What was that other game that the other guy made?
Somerville.
The Somerville, yeah, and it's almost like you can see how Somerville. It's like he took all the artists and animators, and Cocoon took all the designers.
Totally, and I think not that Cocoon doesn't have a story somewhere in there, but like exactly like even the story. Somerville is very focused on there's a story here, there's a world here.
Yeah.
There's something going on, and the gameplay's kind of
broken and
and broken and boring and kind of Where the Cocoon's the opposite, where it's like there really isn't a clear story. There's not really a world to kind of understand or something driving you through it. It's just like, oh, here's a cool bunch of game design.
Yeah. I'm really it's honestly, it's the surprise game for me this year that I knew
you like it, especially a puzzle game. You're not into puzzle games very much. So.
Yeah, but I don't consider it a puzzle game in the same sense of some puzzle games where it's like puzzle 1-1, puzzle 1-2, puzzle 1-3, puzzle 1-4. Like that to me is more.
Yeah.
This is almost like a isometric adventure game.
Yeah, I agree.
Because there is combat and there is some kind of like platformy stuff going on, so it's not really just like puzzle room. It's not Baba Is You or Tetris or Puyo Puyo, But anyways, Derek, let's move on. What's another game you've been playing?
So another game I played and finished. So I played Cocoon, and then I was like, oh man, I'm in the mood for more puzzle games. There's some games that came out this year. I wanted to just get more into puzzle games, and I saw a lot of people talking about this game on Reset Era, so I figured I'd give it a try. It's called Chance of Sinar.
Okay, I've heard of it.
Yeah, so it's not. I don't think it's super popular by any means. It's not a breakout indie or anything, but a lot of people were talking about how this game is kind of a hidden gem in a really awesome puzzle game. So basically, the premise is you're this guy that wakes up at the bottom of this tower, and each floor of the tower or ring of the tower is like a different civilization, and you're trying to like get up to up each ring and up each civilization, but they all speak different languages. So you like.
I've
wake
heard
up
of this game. It's the language
it's,
game.
Yeah, so you wake up and you don't speak any languages, but you're in this first town, and you're like learning the kind of the culture of the town, but also talking to people and like reading their symbols and like their billboards and signposts, but like their ancient hieroglyphs of like how they praise their gods. So you learn like, oh, like that's the symbol for God. But the thing that's cool is like you'll see symbols in a context, and you open up your like journal and you type in what you think that symbol means.
Oh, cool.
So but then when someone else later on, let's say you're talking to someone and they say that same symbol, it will fill in that symbol as the
Even
word
if it's
you
the
typed
wrong
in.
word, right?
Even if it's the wrong word. So like there's times where I'll talk to someone, they're like, God is stupid, stupid, don't you think? And I'm like, oh my God, that doesn't make any sense to what this guy's talking about.
I see.
So
Cool.
and then if you get enough words right, so you like basically you can click and drag them to your journal with a picture. And if you get the pictures matched to the word or to the symbol, then it tells you the actual correct word translation of what that symbol means.
Okay.
So but what gets really cool is one, the floor of the world is its own kind of mini story where it's like, oh, like these people are like enslaved, so they're kind of slaves, but they're also worshiping these church people, and the church people are kind of like enslaving them and telling them what to do or whatever.
Like in real life.
And then you learn that,
Yep.
and then you learn that whole language.
Mm-hmm.
But then you ascend and get past that ring, and you get to the next ring. But then you realize, oh, this ring actually treats that lower ring differently. And
So like a class, kind of like a class structure story.
Totally. But then you learn about like, oh, it's there's also like they're mistranslating one another, and then you're trying to figure out the translations between the two of them while also learning this. So you learn the first language, but then you go to the second language and you don't understand them, and you're realizing, oh, some of these words are the same, and like, oh, they actually misunderstood what they were talking about. So there's like there's a story for each of the rings, but there's also this overarching story.
Okay,
of
don't
like
ruin
this
any
idea,
more
like,
now. You actually makes I want to play this now.
I had a friend play it, and they loved it just because of the idea of it's really fun to like type out words of what you think, and like just realize over time it feels like learning a language. Like you have an
That's
idea
what
of
I've
what
heard
things
about
are.
this game. People say it's like this is the game that makes it's like the approach to this game is similar to the approach of learning a language.
Yeah, it's just exactly. It's like being immersed. It's like you have no idea. You really feel like you have no idea what someone's talking. Like the entire world, you're like, I have no idea. And then all of a sudden you get a word, you're like, oh, that's gotta mean hello. Like
And then you can
sometimes
slowly
like,
pick it apart, right? And then
exactly,
you finally
because
know everything.
every person starts with the same symbol. So you're like, oh, every person I talk to starts with that symbol. It's gotta mean hello. And then you realize, oh, they're ending with that symbol too. So it doesn't mean hello. It means greeting or goodbye.
Cool.
Like it's both.
Question though: is there any combat?
There's no combat, but there are stealth sections. Most people think it's the worst part of the game, and it's a puzzle game. So like, there's things where you need to solve this puzzle to get through to the next part of the ring or the next area of this town, but you can't solve the puzzle because you don't even know the language and what the puzzle is telling you to do. So you're like staring at this puzzle, and it's like, I don't know if I'm supposed to turn these knobs or not, and I don't. And then what's really cool, I think, is you get to the point where you actually find out a clue, and you know that this clue is telling you how to turn those statues.
You need to translate.
So you have the answer, but you don't actually know how to read the answer to solve it. So then you're like, oh my god! So now you're just running around trying to solve these, like piece the clue you have with other things around the world to be like, oh, that means turn clockwise. Like, oh, like I don't know. It's really really cool.
Cool. And last question for you: where did you where do you buy this game? Like, what system is it on?
So you can get it on Steam. I think it's actually out on everything. I would highly recommend you get it on a computer. It doesn't seem very taxing. The only reason I say that is because you're going to end up typing, and you only need the mouse. It's a point and click game, but then when you open up your menu, it's typing. So you can do it if you want to type on your Xbox or type on your Switch. You can using a controller.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, to be honest, the platform I'd want to play that on, if you tell me there's all this typing, is probably my phone. I don't know if it is on mobile.
I don't know if it's on phone, but if it is, I think it should be if it's not.
Yeah, I just really don't like playing games on my computer because to me it's such a mind shift between when I work and when I'm relaxing or playing. So I really don't like the idea of playing on a computer. So I might just do the Switch even, and maybe it's a game touchscreen friendly or something.
Yeah, it should be touchscreen.
Do you think I'd like it? Like, do you actually think I'd like it or no?
I mean, it's a bit more puzzly than Cocoon, but I think it's just a really brilliant puzzle game. Like it's not heavy puzzle. It's not heavy puzzles the way like you're sitting at the Witness being like, oh my god, these fucking lines, I have no idea. It's more like, oh, like I'm in like this city and I'm like a stranger and I'm just like trying to and like it's just really funny. Like I find it really fun and funny because there's a time when this symbol appeared and I'm like, oh, that's got to mean stupid. And then, a few seconds later, I'm like, oh, wait, like, they're not saying stupid. They're saying free. Like, their mind is free, not stupid.
Oh, okay.
And then later on, I'm like, oh, it's not stupid. It's brilliant. Like, they're saying they're actually really smart. And then I was like, oh, wait, it doesn't mean brilliant. It means arrogant. And then I was like, oh, it doesn't mean, you kind of piece it together. And
I
like,
wonder if someone like Mom would even like it, because she's all into, English.
I think Mom would actually love this game.
Something
no
she
joke.
could play
Like,
if it's just pointing.
I
and
think
clicking.
she would struggle with like the very light
User interface.
No, not that. I think the stealth kind of sections, like there is part of it that's a bit more gamey than just words.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
Like you have to follow behind these three other people, so like you blend in with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know if she could do that quite, but she would love the word element of this game. Like I feel like over Christmas we should show her something.
Cool. Yeah, I want to check it out. For me, it's probably a Switch purchase though.
Yeah.
Okay, Derek. Let me talk about another game I've played. We already touched on it earlier. So I did download Starfield and play it, and I guess I just felt like with all the hype I had for it, and how excited I was for it, I had to give it a chance. So I played for about 3 hours. Now I know people say you need to play 12 hours for it to get good.
If someone says that instantly means to me the game's not good.
I don't prescribe to that. And I think the thing that it's such a weird game, okay? Because when I first started playing, I was actually like, whoa, I love how detailed the game is. It feels different than other games. Like more love and care have gone to the environments. Like even something like the beginning. I know people are hating on the beginning because you're in a mine. And so you learn to mine at the beginning, or like learn to mine for resources. But even the way the rocks are designed in the mine are so like personalized. It doesn't feel like just a rock face. It's hard to explain. Like it has a different sensibility around the art design, which I really appreciate. So I thought it was pretty cool. But then the game does this thing where the game was sold to me as kind of a simulation, right? Like I know it's not a full-on sim, it's a Bethesda RPG, but it was selling you on the idea that you are a person in this world, and these are worlds. And for the most part, sold me on the idea that it's open world. And to be honest, I don't really think this game is open world at all. And I think that it's weird because other Bethesda games like Skyrim and Fallout are genuinely giant open one big world. Where when you go from town over there and you turn around, you see mountain over there, that's the mountain you're actually going to go to. Whether or not it's done through trickery or not, it feels like a world. Where same thing with Red Dead Redemption, same thing with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Like it feels like a world.
But just to interrupt, do you think that is literally just because of loading screens? Like is it because there's loading screens that ruins it for you, or what?
Yes, that's a huge part of it. So I'll explain a few of the things that ruined the immersion for me almost immediately. For one, the loading screens. And I heard from reviews, but it's so much worse than you think it is. And I thought this is next gen with SSDs where there are practically no load times. So I'm kind of confused why the load times are this long. Like these are load times I haven't seen on Xbox. So it's like, why when I boot up the game? For one, it doesn't seem like Quick Resume works on this game. So every time I booted it, you're waiting for a GTA 3 level load time.
Like a 2-minute load?
Like a full-on minute. And then you load the game up, and it's like, okay, you're in the city. You're in the new, New Atlantis, I think it's called. And it's cool looking. And you immediately, you're like, oh, nice. I'm in a city. I can go where I want to go. But no, you can't. You're really just in kind of like a front lobby area. And if you go the lobby to that room, you're in a load screen. If you go to lobby to that room, you're in a load screen. You go to lobby to this door, you're in a load screen. So I'm really just in a little room that simulates an outdoor part of a city with load screens going to other areas. It's like it's not like they just put you on a planet and the whole planet is your Fallout style world. Even the planet and the cities are segmented into load screen areas. And the thing that's confusing about that is the graphic fidelity isn't even so high that I even feel it feels like I'm in kind of a detailed and artistically detailed area, but the NPCs kind of look and move like they don't feel next gen in any sense, and the environment doesn't feel very, I don't know, it doesn't feel dynamic. It feels like you're in just kind of like last gen feeling place. Do you know what I mean? It feels like a 4K.
Yeah.
It feels last generation, the game. And I guess I'm just like, I feel like I've gone so far backwards that I'm not just put on the planet and able to wander around the planet. So as soon as things started becoming segmented between doorways, I started to feel like, well, this isn't even open world. You're breaking the sim for me. And one of the things is, the first things you need to do is go to New Atlantis, and you need to like talk to this squad of people who kind of put you on your mission. And they're in this little room that's like kind of like a study where like these seven or so elite people have these conversations about how to explore space, and it's a load screen even to get into just that room. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, this is just one room. Like, how did Tears of the Kingdom do this? They don't have any load screens in the towns. So what are they doing wrong here? And the thing is, like, it's not like this room is so extravagant and you're watching this extravagant cutscene. It's not like the area outside the room is this extravagantly detailed area. It's like a basic flat area. So I'm just kind of like, what's going on? And the other thing that really breaks the immersion for me is the horrendous menu design. And you're constantly going in these menus, but like the deepness you have to go in the menus is annoying. And it has this thing where like, yeah, you can carry more than your weight, and then it makes you go slower, and then you got to like manage your resources in this bad menu. But it's also like if you go to your ship to go to space, okay, well, you're in your cockpit, you've gone through 3 load screens to get there. Now let's go into space. Okay, press pause, go to your menu, go to the sub menu, go to the sub menu. Okay, where in space do you want to go? Click here. Okay, load screen. Unloads. Now I'm in a skybox outside of the planet. That's the other thing that breaks my immersion is the space flight. There is no space travel. It doesn't feel like you're traveling. It feels like you go into a menu and a sub menu and a sub menu, and you load the skybox outside of the place you want to go. And to be honest, you choose a planet to fly to, and it doesn't load you on the planet. It loads you on the skybox in front of the planet, so you can have some sort of mini game in front of the planet where you maybe have a little mini space battle, or they ask you about importing, illegal goods, or like there's some little mini game stuff going on in these skyboxes. But it feels like its own separate game. Like it doesn't ever give you the sense that you're flying anywhere. Because what'll happen is so you load the skybox in front of the planet you want to go to, you're back in your spaceship, and then, okay, I want to land on the planet now. Pause again. Menu, submenu, submenu. Oh, I want to land on this planet. I want to land on this part of this planet. Okay, load screen. Now you're on the planet. So, like, what was the point of the skybox? I get once in a while someone will attack you, and I get once in a while that someone on the planet will say, you can't come here, you have illegal goods, and there's some micro gaming around that. But the game sold me on being a person in this immersive world, and it completely breaks it with these different elements. And to the point where I'm like, why do they even have space travel? Why, like, just load me on the planet. Show me a cutscene going from planet to planet.
Yeah.
And it almost gets to the point where it's almost annoying. It's like I don't want to do that process to go to 1,000 planets. I think I would have much rather this whole thing just take place in one solar system, but do the space travel correctly. Like, be the Outer Wilds or No Man's Sky, but incorporate like that. They really should. I really think they should have done that. I know that's not around their design sensibilities, but the game just feels like it should have released on the Xbox One, PS4, and it feels like a game that comes out in the first year of a new console because it has it's all last generation. And the other thing,
well, I mean, they've been making this game for so long that it probably does have a lot of that kind of.
Well, absolutely,
issues,
yeah.
right?
And the other thing is the gunplay feels okay, but there's a weird disconnect in my mind of in an RPG like this, when you're shooting somebody, like you're shooting them in the head over and over and over again as their life bar goes down, but it's all real time. And I know that's how they do it, but at least in Fallout they had the VAT system where like you target a part of their body. It's semi-turn based. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It kind of made sense to do it that way. But now it's just full real time. So it's full real time, but I'm just like shooting you in the head and shooting you in the head and shooting you in the head and shooting you in the head until your life bar goes away. And, oh, this gun ran out of ammo. Okay, well, let me go deep into this annoying menu and try to find out which guns still have some ammo to it. And it's just, I don't know, like, it's just so unfun to me. And I don't know, there's just, I don't know, I just, I was shocked when I saw the 7 out of 10 reviews come out, and I'm like, they're just being hard on Xbox, and, whatever, they would have given a higher review on another console. But no, I really believe this is a 7 out of 10 game. And it doesn't have the character of something like Fallout or Skyrim that's like unique and artistic and interesting. It's like everyone is so dull. They're just like humans giving you kind of, I don't know. I'm sure I know people love it. I just, yeah, not for me.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'll play it again. And hugely disappointing and not next generation feeling at all. So yeah, that's my.
Does this turn you off of like Bethesda Studio games?
Well, yeah, I guess.
Like Fallout, or I mean Elder Scrolls 6. That is the next kind of game they've kind of announced. Does that excite you, or you're like, oh man, it's gonna be the same kind of crap?
The only it's hard with Bethesda because when I played Skyrim, I played it on Switch. And when I played it, I was like, I had already played Breath of the Wild, and the game felt antiquated to me. And the reason I never played it is because it was apparently so incredibly broken on PS3. I never even touched Skyrim. So I feel like Bethesda has this thing where like some of their games in the past, like Morrowind and Oblivion and Skyrim at the time, and even Fallout 3, felt so far ahead of their time. So Fallout 3 was genuinely so cool what you could do on, and this was on 360, right? PS3. And it was just so cool that you could do all this stuff. It was like a modern RPG. It put the JRPGs of that generation to shame. So I guess my mind with Starfield, I'm like, oh, this is their next big jump, 10-year big step. Like this is where they make their big step from into a new type of brand. Like they were going to reinvigorate and make a next gen version of what the Bethesda game. But it feels like it's trapped in a previous generation. It feels so behind, especially after playing Tears of the Kingdom. Especially after it's just, yeah, way behind.
Like I personally feel that Bethesda has always been kind of like that. Like I didn't, play the games that you've played, but every time I played a Bethesda game, it's always felt like, man, I get what they're going for, and I understand why this took a lot of time and effort. But at the same time, I felt it felt so like uninnovative. I don't know how to explain it. Like very old.
Yeah,
and
yeah. And the gameplay systems aren't interesting. Like
totally. Like I find it's like people really like to be in the world and read every book and talk to every character and read every lore thing. Then great. Like, but that just doesn't interest me. Like I want the moment to moment to be fun, and I don't find them to be that fun in Bethesda games. But what I think is kind of I'm curious about what's going to happen is, we had 2 games this year, both get 96 on Metacritic. We have Tears of the Kingdom and we have Baldur's Gate 3. Mm-hmm. And those 2 are kind of like the 2 things that Bethesda goes for, but they're done, the best we've ever seen, right? We have the open world of Tears of the Kingdom where it really doesn't have a loading screen from the top of the sky to the bottom of the depths. Like you can really go anywhere, and it just feels like a true seamless open world with awesome mechanics of flying, moving quickly, like just all these different kind of things going on.
Timelines, all physics, everything.
Exactly, everything. So open world, in my mind, Bethesda's like, shit, like that's a really tough thing to kind of match in our games or next games. And then you look at Baldur's Gate 3, and people are like applauding it as the most, in-depth, elaborate character, freedom of choice, immersion, multiple storylines, pick who you want to kill and romance. Everything has a consequence, like 1,000 different endings of the game. And Bethesda looking at that and probably saying, "Oh, damn! Like that's really hard to match that on story-wise." So I have a feeling, or I suspect, just maybe it's my own bias against Bethesda, but when Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, that people are going to play and go, well, the open world doesn't feel anywhere near as fun or freeing as Zelda does, and the actual interesting, captivating options don't feel anywhere near as interesting or fun as Baldur's Gate 3. So I don't know if they're going to be kind of stuck in the middle, or they're going to have to kind of spend a long time trying to meet one of those two, because I don't know if you saw that thread on Reset Era where we shouldn't set the new bar at Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, and the whole controversy, yeah.
But I totally get that, and I accept that and understand that like not everything can match that. But at the same time, the bar has now been set to a new standard. Like that is just a fact. Like that
Well,
bar has been raised.
with that discussion around Baldur's Gate 3, I think that was more levied at like AA and indie developers, where
Agreed.
Bethesda is the big king. They're owned by $1 trillion company. Like I'm not gonna
Exactly.
I
That's
don't
what I was
feel
gonna
like,
say,
oh,
too.
woe is Bethesda. Let them make their indie games in peace. Like no, you have like 10 years and probably $1 billion budget.
Exactly. So like again, if I was the lead developer on Elder Scrolls 6, I'd be like, frig, like there's a lot of pressure. We have high expectations because we are known for making these kind of games. And 2 games came out this year that really, like the game we're making right now isn't gonna match those 2. And our game's coming out in 5 years, so we gotta, you know what I mean? Like I'm just curious of how they're probably feeling.
The major issue, and I think this actually is a broad issue across a lot of RPG developers, is that there was a time in game design, let's call it, where RPGs got away with having like, I would call it like a poor game feel. Like even something like Final Fantasy VII feels awful to play. Like it doesn't feel like you're playing Mario or even Ocarina of Time, which at the time even Ocarina of Time hasn't aged the best for game feel. But there was something like very unengaged with the controls. Like, there's a lot of pre-rendered backgrounds. You can't really platform over things. There's no jumping. There's no real hit detection. It's like there's a lot of game feel things that have not intrinsic in an RPG. So back when we were playing Morrowind, and the controls were like, and same with Skyrim, like the fighting controls are awful. Like not just controls, but game feel. Like you don't really, there's no like, they don't feel like they're taking hits. You don't feel like you're giving hits. And but at least the game was so gargantuanly ahead of what everything else was doing. It's almost a little bit like also like with the Grand Theft Auto. We're like, okay, I give it a pass that the shooting controls are awful because no one else makes a city like this. Yeah. But I think what happened over the last few years is games like Horizon and the new Spider-Man and Zelda came out, and now even to a certain extent Assassin's Creed. And it's like, well, no, we do have big open worlds with great game feel now. Like we're not going to say, okay, it's open world, we don't need to have good feeling gameplay. And now I don't think Bethesda ever like really caught on. And I think things like, in the RPG world, like we're seeing Square Enix now saying, well, no, we're going to make these games more action oriented to have a better feeling gameplay. And, with Atlas, they're just saying, okay, well, we need to double down on our stories and make them longer and make our really stylish graphic design and cool art direction, which Bethesda doesn't have either. So I just think that if Bethesda makes a new game in their styling, I think they need to say, okay, we know we do the RPG and dialogue trees and like that kind of thing. That's our thing. But we need to find a way to make it actually feel good to play in a 60-second spurt. Like if I'm in Skyrim, is combat just me like, is it janky and it's all based on what I've been looting and what I've been upgrading in my gear for 20 hours across the world? I don't know if that's acceptable anymore. I think the actual swordplay needs to be fun. And I think that was one of the things, I mean, I didn't play Horizon, but I think that was one of the things that I found so impressive about the early showcases of Horizon, and also what blew me away so much about Zelda being mass open world, yet the actual moment-to-moment gameplay and swordplay and controls and jumping is still so fun and tight. And I think Bethesda needs to think about that.
Like it's funny, like I'll even add not that I've played a lot of it, and I don't know if you've played much of it, and I know there's criticisms, but The Witcher 3. Because I know there's a lot of, people don't love the combat. It feels very floaty or whatever. But
I couldn't get into it for that same reason.
But I'm saying, but even that combat is better than Bethesda games.
Exactly.
Like even though it's not like people actually, you actually feel like you're doing something and like have to think about it. And it still has an amazing open world that is open, and it has an amazing story. And like there's so many side quests or whatever. So again, like I think that bar had already been set by The Witcher 3 or whatever. And Bethesda's like, I think they're living in a decade ago. You know, like they've got to catch up in the sense that like, sure, you have a whole team that can write literal books. They have literal books in their games sometimes. It's like, great, you can have that. But no one wants to play, like there's very few people that want to play a game that isn't fun to move around in.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like it's poor to move around it, but it's the general sense of I'm in a giant open world in space and I'm sitting through load screens and skyboxes to go from place to place. So it's not like it's bad to walk around. Like they've gotten that down, but I just mean it doesn't feel anything new. It feels like a
Like, if
bog standard shooter.
Yeah. Like if they made a solar system and just a single solar system and they like exactly like No Man's Sky or Outer Wilds where you can lift off and fly anywhere. And then let's say you're heading towards a planet and you can only land in 6 spots or whatever. Like there's whatever on the planet to make it somewhat feasible. But if it's all load screen free, right? And you're flying through the solar system towards the next planet and you see cargo ships flying past you and there's like a pirate that comes and tries to raid it. Like if it was just more of a living, breathing solar system that wasn't as huge without those loading screens, I think Starfield would be one of the best games of all time, probably.
Absolutely. And you know, the other thing that's funny is like, okay, you have 1,000 planets and let's say you've got like, 9 cities. Why don't you put 3 of those cities on one planet? Like, what does it matter?
Yeah.
You like literally like it's not like this huge area is actually densely populated. It's sparse. So it's like you're really just gating the whole game behind these load screens, and I don't think gamers nowadays, I think a lot of them can see through that load screen simulation. Like I at least for me, when I see a big load screen to a load screen to a load screen, it really, especially nowadays, really kills my immersion in the game. Mm-hmm. And it's one thing if it's loading before a Mario Kart race or it's loading before a fight or it's but in an adventure game where I'm supposed to be immersed, especially an immersive RPG, I think it's extra important that those types of things are ironed out. But yeah, I just we'll see. I mean, I guess my whole thing is that I just think they need to stop focusing on quantity, because quantity I don't think is impressive anymore. And I think we have massive games, and what I would like to see Bethesda do is if they're gonna focus on their kind of like RPGs, like double down on their NPC RPG quest line stuff, is I'd love to see an RPG that takes place on just one city block. But at one city block, let me be able to beat the game in 2 hours. But let me have 100 different ways to beat that game. And let me go in every building on that city block and make this the densest, most lived in, people are related, people know each other, they've like the intricate city block. I don't need to have, 50 towns across 1,000 planets that feel like they're from the Xbox 360 generation. Like that quantity doesn't get me. But what I'd love to see is a less quantity, more quality.
But you just also mean the same amount of quantity, but condensed into a tight package. I don't even mean the same amount of quality. I mean, if you have 1,000 planets and you have I'm saying have all that 50,000 planets and 50 cities of dialogue and intricacy of characters put into a city block.
Totally, yeah.
It's like there's still a lot of dialogue and character relations and all that storylines, whatever. It's just to fly through loading screens and like have them be so disconnected. Like you kind of want one tight package.
Yep. And I've always had this. I have this idea for a game that I've always wanted to make, and basically it takes place of the premise of the Majora's Mask, where like you only have a few days left. And my whole idea was like the game was going to be like your goal is to get into the circus. You're a clown and you want to join the circus. The world's going to end. You only have 3 days to join the circus to fulfill your life goal. And there's basically 50 ways to join 50 there's so many ways to achieve that goal. But the game only lasts for like an hour because then the world ends and whatever you did in that time is your game session. Right? So you have all these different ways to go, and there's all these secrets, and did you know you could do this, then that, or do it this way, or all these ways to do it. But the game discreetly ends after those 3 days, and maybe you can have save points, but like if you want to start a new cycle, you have to start from the very beginning. And I just it's like almost like a paradigm shift of RPGs, right? Where it's like it's like a short RPG that can be done in you are role playing because of the seemingly choices leading to different outcomes. But I think the approach now is to make your RPG so huge, so much quantity that the gameplay suffers, and it actually doesn't feel. By the time you've 100% of the game, everyone's kind of done the same stuff,
But Outer Wilds is literally that, right?
But Outer Wilds doesn't it have it has a discrete beginning, middle, and end, doesn't it?
No, every time you die, you restart.
You restart, but you restart with the knowledge from the previous time.
only in your brain.
Okay, I thought, and then you get further and can.
Oh, I guess there's a log there, but it's like it's still you're starting from the very beginning of
But
that.
I guess in my mind, it's like the game. My circus idea would be like, oh, I'm gonna head out to some NPC in the town said to head west and said there's a circus out there I can join. So I head west, and to join the circus, he makes me do a mini game where I have to like run away from tigers. Oh, I completed it. Oh, and I learn a little about your family and yada yada yada. Great, you join the circus. The end. That's the end of the game. Now I start the game again, and rather than I talk to the same NPC, he says, "Yeah, you can go west." So well, I don't want to go west this time. I did it last time. Someone else says, "Go east." Then you go east, and something else happens, and you get kidnapped along the way. And so every way you go,
I get that. It's like a choose your own adventure sort of. But I also think it'd be cool if let's say he says go west, and this time you go, but before you run to the tigers, you cover yourself in, I don't know, raw meat or something. I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, now that you do it differently.
Because you know something is going to happen, you've changed your own decision in that same path. Like that's where I like Outer Wilds. It's like, again, your knowledge influences your decision in the future. It's not just like a different choice. It's that you can do the same choices, but now with new knowledge. Outer Wilds is literally is like almost exactly what you're saying, and like that game is phenomenal.
But our Outer Wilds is not an RPG, so I think that's the main thing. This is I'm talking from an RPG standpoint.
How can that be? How can it be an RPG? What, you want to get upgrades? Like, I don't get it.
Well.
What makes it different?
I guess not RPG in the sense of leveling up, more RPG in the sense of NPCs and lots of dialogue and towns and that kind of setting. Where Outer Wilds is more like it's not really like
there's
that.
a fair bit of dialogue and like books and stuff.
Yeah, but Outer Wilds to me is more along the lines of like that game, The Witness, right? It's kind of like an obscure first-person puzzle adventure walking sim thing.
No, The Witness is like you walk to a puzzle. Anyways, you didn't like the Outer Wilds. I get that, but like what you're describing of your like ideal is like 90% of exactly what Outer Wilds is, and people love that game.
Well,
I don't know.
Maybe Bethesda should take some notes.
Totally.
But anyways, let's move on. Anyway, that's Starfield.
Yeah.
What else have you been playing, Derek?
Yeah, so I have 2 more games, but
one of them I think we both played. Yeah.
Oh, really? Lies of P?
No, I was gonna say Separate Ways.
Oh, then I have 5 games. I didn't even count that one.
Okay, tell me about Lies of P though, because I know it's on Game Pass, right?
Lies of P. So I gave it a go a couple days ago. Played it for a few hours. Nothing major. Really, really like it. I would say it's probably the best, and also the most blatant copy of Souls-like games yet. Like even Neo 1 and 2 do a bit of their own thing, where this game almost feels identical. Like you could tell me this was like almost like a steampunk SteamWorld game made by FromSoft, and I would believe you.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like again, it's super well polished. The combat feels good to me. There's so many cool upgrades and sword choices and weapon choices, and the bosses are really good. The enemies, the difficulty feels on point with all the from games. The only downside I have is it's a little bit more linear, where that I don't know if that would actually be more interesting to you, where there's the main path and there's small little branches that give you like an item, but it's not like it's definitely not like Elden Ring, but it's also not even like Dark Souls 3 where you go on these big winding kind of loops that end up back at yourself, like from where you were. Yep. Like there's not a lot of freedom of choice here. It's kind of like there's a main path and little branches. But yeah, really, really enjoying it. Yeah, it's a great game.
You think you'll keep playing to the finish? Like,
yeah, I'd like to. Like, I again, there's nothing that's compelling me to stop. There's not like, oh, this is whatever. It's like, oh, I really want to keep going with it. So, yeah, I think so. If I don't get it done by when Mario comes out, I don't know. Like, I might get distracted by it and not come back to it. But I'd like to play it. Yeah, it's really good.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know if I'll play Lies of P. Something about the art style doesn't do it for me, and I don't know. Unless someone,
you're not big into those kind of games, anyways. But like, I've been telling our friend Neil about it, and he's super stoked for it. He'll love it.
Oh, cool! You're playing on Game Pass, right?
Of course, yeah. Yeah,
that's another thing. Like, I think about all the money I've saved sometimes from Game Pass.
I know, even just giving games a chance. Like, I was like, would I have bought this game? Probably not. But the fact that I gave it a chance, go, oh, like I probably would have bought this game if I knew I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, it truly feels like the more expensive premium is the PS5 is the more premium console for cost, and Xbox is more like the lower cost affair.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been playing Resident Evil Separate Ways. I think I'm about halfway. I really can't tell. It's hard to tell. And I don't know.
Depends where you are.
Yeah, I just went through the town.
So you have a lot to go.
Okay. Sometimes I play for like 40 minutes and I think I played for 3 hours. But it's I don't know, it's so cheap that I can't really be upset, let's say, but it feels the same way I felt about Separate Ways when it came out on PS2 and the Wii version of Resident Evil 4. Like, it just kind of feels like a nothing burger to me. It just feels like you're going through the same environments with slightly different loadout, and that's kind of it. I kind of was hoping there'd be like new environments or bringing back bosses that I hadn't seen, and there doesn't seem to be any of that yet. Maybe there will be.
There will be.
Cool. And I also I find the grapple beam or grapple hook, I don't like it at all.
Oh, I like that a lot.
Maybe I haven't got to the point I'm like comfortable with it, but it seems to change some of the sensibilities around exploring, where I'm now just kind of like looking for a blue icon to pop up, and it just doesn't feel like the way my brain has been taught to explore in a Resident Evil game, if that makes any sense. Like, it feels counterintuitive.
So I would say for exploration, I wouldn't stress about them. There's like maybe 3 in the game, and they're pretty obvious. So don't spend forever just, like, looking around for those. Like, there's that, I really wouldn't stress that. I liked it for the combat. I think it's a great kind of tool to close the gap for melee.
Yeah, I've done some of that in the combat, which is cool. I guess it's just for me, like, I found myself a few times, like, just again wandering the perimeter of the space I can go, trying to find if I've missed an area with that blue circle. Where in the past it would have been more like I'm looking at the art direction of the game. Where's the door?
Yeah, I would say don't do that. Just don't stress yourself.
Okay,
about that.
okay, I won't.
Like, there are a few, but again, they're either really obvious or they're whatever.
Okay. Other than that, I mean, I had to get used to the controls again. Back to Resident Evil style controls.
I know, even the movement felt weird. It took a while to get used to in the aiming. But
yeah.
I just want to jump in and say, like, I totally agree. Like, I think it's kind of as you said, a nothing burger. I had my fun with it. I would kind of equate it to, this is probably not the best example, but like kind of like Master Quest for Ocarina of Time, where it's like it is the same game but kind of reduxed.
Exactly.
You know,
yeah.
It's like it's nice kind of to go through it and like see a different idea they almost had for the main game, but they just put it in this as like a different idea.
Yeah, like different order of things and stuff.
Exactly. It feels like almost like cut content, or this is the idea they had as a maybe on the drawing board when they made Resident Evil 4 remake, but they chose with a different direction, I guess. You know, I've beaten it 3 times. Like do
you really think that? Do you really think they were, some of the ideas from Separate Ways were things where they were thinking about putting in the base game? I don't know about that.
I think at least one boss potentially.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. Or even like, you know, you haven't got there, but like, when you get to the regenerators, like the sequence is very similar to what Leon does, but different. So it's like, oh, like they could have gone either way. Yeah, like I liked it, but I totally agree with you. It's not as mind blowing as the main game.
Yeah, and I guess you know, for what is it, $9, and Shadow dropped 3 months later or whatever. Like I can't have too high of expectations, but I think I would have rather them given us something a little meatier for $20 or something. You know. Did
you play any of the mercenaries, like with the new characters?
No, that's one thing I'm excited for, and I to play as Wesker and everything.
Wesker. Yeah, he's super strong.
It's Wesker and Hunk they unlocked, right?
No, Wesker and Ada. Hunk was already in it.
Already in it. That's right. Sweet. Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'll definitely beat it. It's just more of a brain off thing, and I guess I was kind of hyped going into it, being like, oh, we're gonna see all these things that were not put in the game and the new areas, and it's not that. So
yeah,
at least it's cheap.
Yeah.
What's the last thing you've been playing?
Yeah, so I got one final game. I've been playing, I've been going through these indie games lately, and I have a list of like indie games that came out this year that I want to play. And This one's called Dave the Diver. So I was like,
I've
like
heard
I
of
heard
this.
some.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it got great reviews. I think it has like a 90 on Metacritic or something ridiculous. And it's made by like a small studio, but I think it's funded by, I want to say Epic. Like it's funded by some bigger studio.
Okay.
Bigger. And I'm really enjoying it. It's like one of those games that it's almost like designed to have a really good gameplay loop where like, oh, you go, basically what you do is you go diving, and it's exploring kind of like it's almost like a Steam World dig.
I was
Like,
just
it's
thinking
you
that,
got-
like, go down, collect, come up, buy, go back down, do this, come back up.
exactly. So you go down, you kind of have like a main story of like, oh, get to this point, and then but there's also like other things you're trying to do, like, oh, free this person or find this gem, and then as you get stuff and get fish or whatever, you go back. And so that's kind of the first half of it, and the second half is you run a sushi place. So you have like a chef there, and you're the waiter, and he cuts up all the food that depending on what you want to put on the menu that night, and you're like running around selling it, almost like a mini game, like
Overcooked?
almost like Overcooked. Yeah, exactly. Where it's like everyone wants their food, and if they get tired of waiting, they leave. But you can hire waiters, you can hire more cooks, you can upgrade your recipes, you can add stuff, like you have VIP guests. So it's like, it's even that half of the game is really kind of in depth. There's a lot to it. But then exactly, you sell your stuff, you get your money, and then you spend that on like being able to dive deeper and to hold more cargo and to get a better harpoon gun.
Cool.
So then you go back down, go deeper, whatever, do the whole thing. But the thing I really like about it, it's like, again, I'm enjoying that whole gameplay loop, is it constantly adds another element to the game. So like, and it's so funny. Like an example is, the first day you just have the harpoon gun, but then you come up, you unlock the ability to like buy underwater guns. The guy that's selling guns is like this like overweight American like weeb that like has like anime figurines on his desk.
Okay.
And like the cuts, but they have these like really funny cutscenes of like when he builds a gun, it's like has like the anime K-pop music playing, and he's like trying to build his gun, like sweating off his brow. Like it's just it's really funny. But then it's like, oh, you go in the ocean again. It's like all of a sudden these dolphins swim by and they need your help. And it's like, oh, the next time you go in, there's these. Exactly. Or you go in again and like, oh, there's poachers, or this giant whale swims by.
Don't ruin
or
any
like,
of these surprises. I want to play this.
Okay, yeah. Anyways, and then you go to the restaurant, and there's surprises there too. Like, oh, this person shows up and they talk about this, and you get this new ability on your phone. You get this new upgrade, and then like, oh, you can do this and buy this and rent these people out. So it's like
Lots of
day
systems they're introducing.
Exactly. It feels a little bit like Stardew Valley in the sense where it's like, oh, like there's so many systems going on and so much to do. You can kind of take it in any direction you want to go.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's kind of like Stardew meets SteamWorld Dig, but like in an underwater cooking.
Is there because I've gotten into games like this. Like I got really into SteamWorld Dig, the first one, and then I got really far and burnt out on it. Is this have you beaten this Dave the Diver game yet, or is it like a forever game?
I think you could probably play forever if you wanted. I heard it's about 25 hours.
Oh wow.
I'm nowhere near that. I just started 2 days ago. So
what are you playing on PC?
I'm playing that on PC as well. Yeah.
Is it on anything else? I'm just wondering if it's on Game Pass.
I think it's on everything. I don't quote me. I think it's on everything.
I'm gonna look into that because if I like to get my indie games on Switch if they run well.
And the thing the only thing I would say on Switch is it might have loading screens that are like because after you go to the water you have a load screen, and then go to the restaurant you have a load screen. I don't think it'd be that bad, but again with the Switch and it might not be as fast.
Just something about having the indie games on Switch just makes sense in my brain.
I know, especially this game is actually good for portable. Like this game is great because it's by day, like kind of like Stardew Valley, so you can get really sucked in of like playing day after day after day because you like, oh, I just got that upgrade, now I want to go swimming again.
Yeah.
Oh, I got this upgrade, now I want to make that recipe for VIP guest.
It's like pixel style graphics, right? Like
yes.
Okay.
Yes, but the other thing is like it's really easy to go like, oh, like I'm gonna play for 20 minutes. I'm gonna do like one underwater thing and then one evening at the restaurant, and then I'm done for the like I'll play again. Tomorrow. 9
hours goes by.
Yeah, so it's like, but you can always stop. Like, there's so many good stopping points of like, oh, I just did my scuba stuff. Like, now I'm good. Like, so it's like you can play in 10-minute bursts, but you can get sucked in for longer than that.
Cool. Yeah, I might.
Yeah.
Man, I might look into that one. I mean, you've given me some good indie suggestions here.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get through my 2023 indie games just to like have a more rounded list for my game of the year. So there's a few on my list, and I'm working through them.
Good. What's your? I guess your next game is Mario Wonder, isn't it?
And Spider-Man 2.
Nice.
But again, I'm finishing Lies of P, finishing up Dave the Diver, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm still working on Pikmin 4 as well.
Oh, you haven't beat Pikmin 4. I guess you beat the first.
I can't tell with Pikmin 4 whether it didn't capture me as much as I wanted, or I'm actually just enjoying the very glacial pace I'm playing it. Like, I enjoy it. I just don't feel riveted to like play it every day. You know, and I'm very content to turn it on, play one day, and that's it.
We're also like different points of our life too. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know if I could play Pikmin for hours either.
There's just something with when I was playing like Resident Evil 4, or I was playing Elden Ring, or I was playing Tears of the Kingdom, where hours just went away. You know, where like I just didn't want to stop. And when I stopped, I was thinking about playing it again. And that just didn't really happen with Pikmin the way it did with like Pikmin 3 and Pikmin 1. So I'm wondering if I was thinking about this with Pikmin, just to side topic it, is that the game still doesn't seem very hard. And I don't know if that's maybe one of the reasons why I'm not as riveted by this one or sucked in, where even with, you know, number 3, it had the illusion that you're running out of days. So I kind of felt this urgency to finish, where this one kind of just feels like it's going and going and going forever. Like there's always more Pikmin to do when I get to it. So maybe that's some of it. I don't know. I really like it. It hasn't. I don't know. I kind of.
Yeah, I mean, but you can also like games that you don't have to play, you know, for long sessions.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I've been in a weird gaming mode recently, like where I just haven't. It's been extra hard to get me to game. I think
your mind's not, your heart's not in it at that time.
Yeah, it's like after Tears of the Kingdom, just nothing has really swept me up that way. And I don't know, like at nighttime and when I get home from work,
you're liking Cocoon.
I'm loving Cocoon. That game got me. I'm loving that. But nothing else really. Like I guess at nighttime I just kind of feel like I want to watch movies or you know, nothing has really done that for me. So I'm really liking Cocoon. I think Mario will kind of get me out of that funk. I just need something simpler. Is what it
like
is.
I think Chance of Sinar, like that word game, is, to me, I liked it more than Cocoon. I don't think Dave the Diver is necessarily going to be up there for me personally. Like, I think it's fun, but it's kind of like that repetitive, addicting, not actually substance fun.
Yep.
But Chance of Sinar, like I think that'll be probably like, you know, number 6 on my list or something.
Oh wow,
it's really good. Yeah.
Do you still is your number 1 still Tears of the Kingdom, or?
Number 1 is still Tears of the Kingdom. Number 2, Resident Evil 4. And the rest, I have ideas. Like I write down every game I play and write a little note about each one so I don't forget throughout the year. But yeah, so number 3 I think I have, and then I kind of have an idea after, but top 2 right now are Zelda and Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, I actually think I'm exactly the same. I know I'm pretty sure Zelda will be my number 1 just because of how much I love that game. And the fact that it's already ahead of Resident Evil 4, like, you know, but I still kind of didn't know what number 2 and 3 and 4 would be. I was going to kind of sit on that because
I'm really curious about, like, when we discuss our lists, you know, in January or whatever, I think our number 1 and 2s and maybe even our number 3s and 4s might end up being, you know, the 2 Mario games coming out.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to hear our lower, like, 5 through 10, because I have games that you've definitely outplayed, and I'm sure you're gonna have games that I haven't played. So
yeah, and you know, the thing for me too is, like, I feel like December and January is when I do some of my heaviest gaming. Just because we kind of are in a game of the year finish up everything mode, but also because it's so freaking cold and dead and nothing's going on outside and the days are short. So it becomes a very easy time to, like, crush games. So and the things, like, I never would have thought of Cocoon. I never would have thought of this language game you're talking about. And like, that's what I love about video games, right? In 3 weeks from now, there might be something I've never heard of that I love.
Yeah, and that's why I like talking about games with you, is because I feel like we both have played different games and different takes, and like there are games you suggested to me and vice versa that we give it a chance and like we really like.
Are there any? Now, I will say there's this one game that I keep coming across that I loved, that I played a while ago, and I kept telling you to play it, and I still know you haven't, and I still think
It's Sable.
No, not Sable. Sable's on Game Pass, and it's 10 frames a second. It's fun. I got sucked into it, but I was like, that's like the rare.
It was taken off Game Pass.
Yeah, okay, that's like the rare like not good game that I happen to love. No, it's Kirby and the Forgotten Land. And
I'm waiting to get that on sale.
But true, but it might never be on sale. And the other thing I keep thinking to myself is that in the Switch's life cycle, it's the one game that still stood out. And when I think about like my experience with games through the Switch's life cycle, from Astral Chain to Luigi's Mansion to Mario Maker, even to Metroid Dread, something about the Kirby and the Forgotten Land just like it sticks out in this great way for me, and in this warm way. And I honestly feel like a decade from now, I'm still gonna feel that way about that game. I just think it's freaking great. The music was great. Going for 100% was great. I actually really love it. It's actually with time has gotten better for me. So I really like. I tell everyone like I have other friends too that are Switch lovers and they buy everything and they just like I don't want to pay full price for that game, but it's like a full platforming adventure action game. It's really high quality. So I always
like I'll be honest though, I won't buy it unless it hits like $45-50 at most.
Yeah, and I think that's too bad because I think it's the stigma of the series that's making you feel that way.
It's not, honestly. I don't want to spend full price on games. Like games are expensive, and I don't want to spend that much money. And the game didn't entice me enough to spend a full price game.
I think though you could easily find it on like Kijiji or eBay for what you're looking.
I just about every week I check.
Okay, it's still like at the 50, 60 range.
I go through like my Facebook Marketplace and I check Amazon. But I have Amazon. It's on a wish list, so I see the price every time.
Okay,
but also on Facebook Marketplace, I check especially that game.
Yeah, it's that one game I really think that you got to get on before the Switch ends. It's just excellent. It's definitely on my top 10 Switch games. I don't know if you have any Switch games like that where you feel like, oh, why didn't you ever play this, Peter? You should play this.
I'm drawing a blank right now. Like I'm sure there's like not really first party because you played probably all the first party games that I have,
except for Fire Emblems, yeah.
Yeah, and like Mario and Rabbids, I don't know, I like those, but I wouldn't recommend them necessarily. But there's a lot of indie games like that I would recommend, or even there's like again Returnal. Like you don't have a PS5, but like Returnal is so good. Like to me, it's like top 20 games of all time for me.
Wow.
Yeah, and you know what I would honestly say is the game that I wish you had given him more of a chance. Is Outer Wilds. And I know we already talked about it today, but it's just it's a game that you can only play once to truly experience it. And it's such a phenomenally crafted game, and like it has that eureka moment it's just so good.
Yeah, I mean, I did give it a good try. I did. It wasn't like I just played it for 2 seconds. I did die a bunch, and I kind of found... I mean, there was an initial feeling of, like, insane wonder playing it. You're like, whoa, like, it feels like these things were built... I don't know, it's like a mystique that few games have. Like, I talked about mystique before. Like, I find, like, Metroid Prime, the first one, has so much mysticism about it, and so does, like, Zelda, and so did Outer Wilds. I guess I just found... I guess I just died a few times, and I felt like I wasn't understanding the progression, and it felt a little obtuse, and it felt like every time I restarted, I was just not getting anywhere. But I don't know. I kind of, when I started to see the puzzles that I was coming across, I'm like, okay, I can see what the eureka moment probably is. Maybe it's not what I think it is, but it kind of seemed like, okay, I get that these things on these planets mean something and they will coalesce. In the simplest of terms, right?
Yeah.
Cool, Derek. Okay, well, is there anything else to be talked about today?
That would probably be it on my end.
Cool. Okay, well, we'll come back in about about a week and a half or 2 weeks to talk about Mario Wonder. Oh, there's the one last thing I was going to ask you. I forgot to touch on Mario Bros. Wonder Metacritic prediction. What's your prediction, Derek?
I'm going to say 91.
91. I'm gonna go 88.
Okay.
I think
I'm gonna join the hype train and say it's gonna do better than that.
91 would be crazy. I'd love that.
I think 80. I think my low, like my real guess was originally 88, but with all the hype, I think I've raised it. But 88 to 91, I think is the best guess.
Just remember that Metroid Dread had an 88 as well, with lots of hype and lots of positive hype. I just think with a 2D game, it's so easy for a lot of review outlets to be like, this is a really great game, really great, everything's good about it, 4 out of 5. You know, it's not like Zelda or a big 3D adventure where it's like, oh, we feel the impetus to give you a full 10. It's like a 4 all of a sudden becomes okay when the game's 2D. And it kind of, I think it kind of, I don't know, but well, that's what I think will kind of drag it down. And I think 91's possible, but I think it needs to be better than I expect it to be for that. So,
yeah, exactly. Anyways, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll talk in a few weeks, Derek. This was a great chat.
Yeah, it was.
All right, this is Nintendo Bros Pete signing out.
And this is Derek. See you later.